3, 2, 1. Commentary box.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome on in to the 7th round of the RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3 Championship of Season 21. My name is Tristan Herbst, and joining us momentarily in the commentary box while we host a quick joint introduction here is also Stephen Koenig, swinging it around for the Pro Division. How are you doing today, Steve?
Good, and yourself, Tristan, considering round 7 is here and we're all ready to play. I think we're in for an absolutely stunning time at the beautiful circuit, one of my favorites, Donington, to go and just rock around, have a bit of fun with, and see what the guys are going to be able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Donington, Alton is going to be an incredible track to be watching. It's quite a little bit of a difficult track, and I've seen some of the drivers, especially some of my own team drivers, really trying to get the pressure down in terms of practice for this track. It is a difficult circuit. It's a narrow road, meaning overtakes can become slightly complicated, and the grass does tend to trip the car up very easily over here. So we might potentially be seeing some form of incidents here and there today, but we're hoping that we can try and steer clear from that. But other than that, I think it's going to be a great race. Obviously, this is going to be our main division race. 1 hour and 20 minutes of racing and 2 mandatory pit stops. So that is going to play very much so into our pit stop strategies and how people are going to come out towards the end.
That's it. And we've also got to talk about a special situation that is the reason for the joint. Is this will be Tristan Herbst's final night for the weekly racing here at RaceFace.Pro. And from myself, I'd like to say, Tristan, thank you so much for everything that you've done for RaceFace, for all the sim racers out there, taking time away from the steering wheel, away from the family, and getting behind the microphone. And considering this is one of your last broadcasts for the weekly racing, hope that you're in for an absolutely fantastic time here at Donington. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please raise your hands. Give them a big round of applause. Tristan Herbst, absolutely been the voice that you've been hearing every single Thursday for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an honor here at the RaceFace.Pro grandstands and the podiums here all over the comms boxes. And it's really been a phenomenal time just, getting that chance to be out on the microphone. And like Steven mentions, it's a big emphasis on weekly races. I'm still going to be in the scene. I'm still going to be commentating every now and then. It's just going to be on more of our South African once-off events, as well as our endurance events and bigger events that are a little bit more gapped in between each other. It's just unfortunately the weekly events, it does start to get strenuous, but it's been an absolute pleasure, and it's not over just yet. We've got one more round tonight here at Alton Park, and we are going to give our absolute all. Well, me in particular, I'm going to give my absolute all here for the final time around in the weekly races. But Steve, I think it's going to be a great one. But without further ado, I think it's then time for us to disperse, and we'll meet back again at the end of the race.
Sounds like a plan. Going to head down to qualifying as we got 9 minutes left of our pro qualifying. Good to have everyone here. Big special welcome.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and we've moved away now, so apologies about the joint introduction, but it is needed to be said, and it is sad, and I know loads of people have always gotten the Discord messages still, and people letting me know, great job that I'm doing, and all that kind of stuff, and I'm so highly appreciative of everybody who comes in and cheers me on and gives me the motivation to keep on going. But sometimes you do just have to make calls in life, and life does sometimes get busy, and you do have to prioritize certain things. And unfortunately, the weekly commentating is something I just cannot no longer do. I'm unfortunately just got a couple of other things going on brewing behind the scenes, and I'd like to stick a little bit more hands into those kind of pots. But without further ado, let's move away from that slightly saddening news about no more weekly commentating coming from my side, and let's move into what we're seeing on screen right now. We've still got one round for the Pro-Am stream that is going to be broadcasted. Unfortunately, there'll be nothing next week, but there will still be 2 nights of racing and sending it around. So we're going to have to watch closely how it goes. A couple of team changes that some people might be seeing out on track. Herman Percival, moving over from Apex Titans Racing, has joined Omnius Gaming Nitro for the remainder of the 2025 season. So that's a good move. Obviously, coming from the Omnius Gaming management over here, myself, and actually the person who pulled Herman onto the squad, he is definitely a great pickup. And one driver who we really have to watch out for, because it's a driver who's sitting in Pro-Am, but definitely should be sending it out in the Pro Division. A very fast driver indeed, and we'll continue to watch him as he sends it around track. Round van Volta for the Pandacity number 99 McLaren sits around in first position right now, 133.1 at Alton Park. And like I mentioned in the joint interview a little bit further on, a little bit earlier on in tonight's stream, Alton Park is a complicated circuit. Personally, I have driven on it before, but I'm not too fond and familiar of it. But I have been hearing all over the chats among the community how difficult the circuit can be. It's strenuous, it is constant focus, and it's a narrow circuit, meaning you do not have much space to play around with that car. If you let your car run slightly too wide, as you can see, Ron van der Walt using that track limit extension as just the amount that he's just able to use. If you looked at that replay, just if he were to stick a little bit more of a wheel over there, he'd be touching grass bound. And as we know, grass can cause multiple issues in GT3 cars. It can cause those rear tires to spin up and lose traction, especially if it gets wet. But I'm pretty sure we are going to be cruising around in a relatively dry track tonight, but we'll have to see how it all goes. But currently, General Detroit and the Pandacity Infiltrate team, the number 77, is also trying to redeem, and we are really getting close now to the end of our season. It is one round left after this. We head to Red Bull Ring, but we are currently here at Alton Park, round 7 of season 21 of RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3, and it has been a phenomenal season so far of sending from every single person out on track. And now this is where the pinnacle moments are going to come in for all of these drivers, and we're going to have to see how it is going to turn out for all of them. But we've got a couple of people in our virtual grandstand. Stingers Racing's official channel coming into the virtual grandstand saying, "Go Stinger boy, send it Chris." And Chris, currently who we see on our broadcast, Mr. Chris Collison, teammates to Gerrit Bierkes, who's currently in the Pro Division. And just a reminder about that, Pro Division is currently being streamed in as well on the RaceFace.Pro YouTube channel. That's by Stephen Koenig. Oh, almost a little bit of a moment there by Jono Detroit. As well as Lloyd Getting. That's my boy number 44, supporting all the way from UK, Percy. And by Percy, that is talking about the one and only number 44 Honda of Herman Percival, currently sitting in second position for the Omnius Gaming Nitro team, doing a phenomenal job at it as well. 0.04 of a second away from Ron van der Walt, who's set even faster now with a 132.7. So the competition is higher. Everybody is pushing their cars to the absolute limit here. And with a track that is relatively mixed in terms of track, as you can see, a couple of straights that we're bearing over here. One, you can see where the number 222 is currently a little bit of a straight, and then as well as where our number 99 is right now, also quite a little bit of a long straight. So there is a little bit of space for our cars like the Mustangs and the Ferraris to really begin to pull those gaps with top speed. But this is a very strenuous and technical circuit where we have loads of high-speed corners, and that does rely on how well you can brake and manage that car rotating around corners. So we're going to have to see how that does turn out for all of these drivers as they continue to pursue around track. Janro Buerta, the team Kurugma Racing's number 11, a little bit off track there, bouncing off up and down a little bit, and just not finding the grips. Going to pull the Porsche back in and try and find somewhere else. Jonathan Chislett as well, not finding the grips in the Lamborghini, and decides to pull it in. Yaku Nordia, the KSR Force team, currently with a 140.34.2, sitting in 13th position, so he's going to try and improve on that. But let's have a look at a couple people who are currently setting better. Arno Kraus, 5/10 up right now in the Porsche of Team Tryhard Racing, and he is trying to send it around track and push it as hard as he can from 19th. 5/10 up is going to set him around about 16th, just behind 16th, 17th, around Alvin Prim and Jean Mostert. But that all depends on how well he can keep pushing. Now 8/10 up already for the Porsche driver. And this is definitely going to boost him up around about to 15th or so position, up to 14th. And that was an incredible lap from him. And he's going to continue to try and push it now. Francois Buerta, 3/10 up as well. Actually now down to 2 after that final corner. Just losing traction coming out of that final corner. So we'll have to see how it's going to come across the line for him. It is now up to 3.5/10, dropping back down to 2/10, almost 1/10 only after that final corner. So he might, no, he's not even going to catch Alvin Prim, so stays where he is. And that is unfortunate. Ron van der Walt, 2/10 up, sets an even better lap time and a 132.4, but unfortunately it was not valid. And that is not going to be great for him. Martin Rodenbach also currently up on time, but it is also invalid. So extremely unfortunate over there, getting the invalid lap times. And currently Yaku Nordia, 1/10 up on his lap as well, and just a little bit trying to find the pace in the car with the final 3 minutes here. Conrad Martin, 2/10 up on his current lap time, and that can do him some good justice, push him all the way up into the top 5 if he can manage this one. So if he just continues to pace the car over here, sending around track, currently sitting a little bit far from the finish line, only just started and 2.5 tenths up already. So he could potentially either lose all the time he's built up, or he could gain a lot of it and actually build up more. Yaku Nordia now 4 tenths up on his current lap. That could potentially put him in front of Jonathan Chislett, but we'll have to see how that's going to land up for him. Almost at the finish line now, and he's actually lost a lot of time. 3 tenths up now, and in counting, coming around the corner, and it's looking like 2.5 tenths up. So unfortunately not going to put him in front of Jonathan Chislett, but it is going to be an improvement on lap time, and we'll have to see how that keeps on going for him with 2.5 or so minutes left. Garrett Pretorius 2.5 tenths up as he sends it around track in the Ferrari 296 with the beautiful pink Griffin Sim Racing team livery, as he tries to hold it around track, sending it as hard as he can. But back up to the top, Jean Dutoit 1.1 seconds faster than his previous lap time. This will be an incredibly fast lap if he can hold it tight, 1 second ahead. And this is definitely going to boost him up all the way into first position, but it doesn't look like it counted. 132.1, that would have been extremely fast, but it was invalid, unfortunately. Super unfortunate there for Jean Dutoit, and he's not going to be chuffed about that one, invalidating a lap as such, as that could have really pushed him up there in the standings. Alvin Preem currently 3 tenths up for the McLaren Racing team. That looks like Francois Berta currently off track as he tries to pursue it still. But will this be a better lap time for the likes of Alvin Preem? 5 tenths up right now for Garrett Pretorius. We were watching him earlier on in his lap. Now coming across the finish line, is it going to be a valid lap? If so, it is going to boost him quite high up. And watching him as he crosses, it is valid up to 13th position. So good up and over there from him. Currently 3 tenths up as well is Conrad Martin. And we were obviously with him a little bit earlier on track. Now coming towards the finish line on a separate lap. And 3.5 or so tenths up on his previous lap time. So if he does this will actually boost him up into the top 4. But now down to 2 tenths up. So he is losing a little bit of time. We'll have to see how it's going to go for him as he does come around the final 2 embankments to set this lap time. And the blue McLaren really looking good out on track. It is quite a nice staggering color to see. Usually you see the greens and the oranges on the McLarens, but now a nice vibrant blue gets to separate our grid over here. So 2.5 tenths up for Conrad Martin. It will be an improvement, and he will catch Chris Collison and Anton Lammers, but that all depends up, and he did catch him indeed over the finish line up to 4th position, so breaking the top 5 barrier over there. Herman Percival now 2 tenths up on his current lap time, trying to chase down to start this race in P1. But Ron van der Walt is also trying to set a better lap time, currently at 1 tenth up, with the likes of Herman Percival 2.5 tenths up, and they are separated by the smallest of margins. So we'll have to see how it goes for these two. But David van Beek 3 tenths up, actually just comes across the line. 3rd place for David van Beek, and incredible job over there. Unfortunately, just not getting the naming convention right on his car. Herman Percival not having the best of times though, as he's now currently a 10th up on his last lap time. He is finding a little bit more pace, but so is Ron van der Walt with 1 tenth up currently on his lap time, and Herman Percival has pulled the car off to the side and is not going to continue to push it. Oh, but he's actually gotten the lap time, and he's 0.002 of a second faster, 0.002 of a second faster than Ron van der Walt. And if Ron cannot get the lap time here, which he cannot, pulls it into the pit lane, Herman Percival will be starting in 1st place for the Omnius Gaming Nitro team. Gian Roberta still out on track right now, 3 tenths up on lap time. This could really do him well and bring him up into the top 10, but it is going to be all eyes on him as he comes through. David van Beek also still out on a lap, but it is not an improvement. So Gian Roberta, all eyes on him, only driver out on track with an improving lap time so far. So we'll have to see how that goes for him as he continues to pursue it around track. Now 1.5. Oh, actually losing a lot of time there, unfortunately. And just deciding to pull it off. Not going to be one for him. And that is our whole grid. I believe David van Beek is still out on track. Rob van der Heever's pulled in. I think it is just David van Beek. But he's currently 4 tenths up. So actually just doing a little bit of a finishing lap before we head to our next session. And we will see you guys right after the break. Herman Percival saying lost 3 tenths the last turn. That is so unfortunate. And Panda Man saying let's go David van Beek. All the support is booming here. We'll see you guys after the break. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, and back up onto our main grid over here. We've got a stagnant start over here, 22 cars starting off on this grid. One phenomenal long line of cars lining up, and this is definitely going to be an interesting one to watch. We've got a long list of cars that are lined up here to race, and we've actually got a very nice camera angle to start us off. So we're going to go through the driving order here. Usually we'd go on our formation lap because we aren't able to see the cars, but we've actually got such a nice shot here of each car rolling down the grid. So starting off in first place, Herman Percival, followed by Ron van der Walt in second place. David van Veek comes across in third. Martin Roundbach in fourth position. Conrad Martin in fifth, followed by Jean de Toit in sixth. Anton Lammers in seventh. Chris Collison in eighth position, followed by Neil Swartz in ninth position. Lawrence Badenhorst in 10th position, followed by Jean-Ray Buerta in 11th position. And then Jonathan Chislett in 12th position, followed by Gerard Pretorius in 13th position. Alvin Priem in 14th position, followed by Arno Kraus in 15th position. 16th position, Hunty Myberg in 17th position. Jean Mostert in 18th position, followed by Francois Buerta in 19th position. Alex Petro in 20th, followed by Kyle Henderson in 21st. And to rock off the final placement of this grid is Rob van der Heever in the Griffin Sim Racing team. The final car on grid, the 22nd car out on track. And this is going to be a phenomenal standing start here. As you can see in the helicam, just waiting for the start of this race. Loads and loads of cars lined up and ready to send it around track one more time here just before the final. For round 7 here at Alton Park. Next week we head to Red Bull Ring, and that officially marks the closing of our season 21 season of racing, which has been an absolutely phenomenal one. But an hour and 20 minutes of racing ahead. Herman Percival pulls off the line to start the formation lap, and following behind him we've got the rest of the grid peeling in as everybody begins to pull off the formation line, just waiting for the driver ahead to begin to pull traction. And then they'll begin to get those tires warmed up very nicely so. But this is going to be a close one. Hour and 20 minutes. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, since round 5, there has been a removal of the pit window. There is no longer the rule restriction of only being able to pit 10 minutes after the start and only being able to do your final pit stop 10 minutes before the end of the race. Now it is completely open. You can perform a pit stop whenever you like during the race, and it will count towards your mandatory pit stops, which is currently set to 2 mandatory pit stops per driver. And that is really going to play into the fact of how things go. We know some drivers go for the extreme undercut, such as Herman Percival, as well as a familiar driver who loves his undercuts, Jean-Ray Buerta. The Team Karugma Racing Porsche also loves to do his undercuts. And then there are some other drivers who also love to stay out and race it till the absolute end, and only perform those pit stops when they are necessary. And that's quite a mixed array of grid drivers over here, but still a large grid at hand. And looking at our track map, you can see the concertina as all of them begin to still stick on each other for the formation lap. That is going to begin to disperse as we start heading around track here for the full 1 hour and 20 minutes. And quite a big track actually, so our back marker state is only going to start a little bit later on compared to tracks such as Red Bull Ring, where you would see it quite early on in the race. So this time around, not going to be seeing it too early on, but we'll still have to see what happens. So most of the drivers, not too sure if we'll be able to see it in the current camera angle, but most of the drivers, as you'll see them coming on most of your straights, will be holding down that brake. And you'll see it on the brake lights. You'll see some of the drivers, you can see it on the McLaren over there, you'll see it on the BMW, and the cars are actually brake dragging. It is the process of essentially accelerating the car in the low gear, but also holding the brakes down on the car, and that creates a whole lot of heat from the brakes, front and back, and all that heat gets transferred straight to the rims of the tires, and that heat goes from the rims to the actual rubber on the outside of the tire, heating it up nicely before the start of the race. You do not want to be caught with cold tires, especially in a track such as this at Alton Park, because you can be overtaken and it is very hard to get that position back once being overtaken. But now we are into our final section over here before we start this race. Our helicam is very high up due to the tree coverage here at Alton Park, so we cannot get too close down to these drivers, unfortunately, but we still will be able to see the start. Here comes Herman Percival, and holding on to the start of this race, creeping up towards the front of the line over here, And soon we'll be given the green flag by Jeff on the sideline. Then it's go, lights out and away. And waiting for it. Green light's been administered. Henry Percival pulls across. Doesn't get the better launch that he would have hoped for. Run van der Walt holds on the outside line. But thankfully, Herman Percival having the inside line going into the next corner. Looking down the raceway grid though, everybody managing our turn 1 relatively simple. Thankfully not a concertina turn 1 where all the cars begin to bunch up. It's actually quite a fast turn 1. Similar to the one we see at Silverstone. And it actually allows the drivers to keep their distance from each other and not cause too many incidents. But we do unfortunately have a couple of incidents down the line. And that unfortunately cannot get there to whoever is down there as it keeps on pulling us back. But that looks like... Actually not sure who's fallen off down back there. But that is super unfortunate. I believe it's Neil Swartz who did not get the start he wanted here at the likes of Alton Park. And he's going to be having to try and climb back onto the pace and try and find his way back up the grid. But now Herman Percival has the job of keeping Ron van der Walt behind him before the end of this race. And we're going to have to see how it goes for them. But they're going to be fighting up and down this grid. David van Beek is going to feel the pressure from Jean-Ray du Toit just a little bit further behind him. Conrad Martin also boasting an incredible amount of speed there in the McLaren. He's going to have Chris Collison just a little bit further behind him. So let's see how the fight goes for those two. But Jean-Ray Buerta, our undercut master, now with Lawrence Badenhorst just a little bit further on behind him. And we might already see him pulling in here at the first lap to complete his first pit stop. But only time will tell, and exactly as I predicted it, Jean-Ray Buerta into the pit lane to get that first pit stop done and dusted. He is joined by another driver, and I believe that was a pink car. Looked like Gerrit Pretorius. Indeed, it was Gerrit Pretorius. So a couple of drivers coming in to serve that first pit stop, getting it done, no issues whatsoever. And as you can see, it was the splash and dash for Jean-Ray Buerta, getting out nicely, and will continue to push around track. But now Herman Percival still holding on nicely, about 4/10 or so from Ron van der Walt. And now this is just his job for the rest of the race, is to hold him behind whilst he'll risk sacrificing the first place finishing position for himself as well as Team Omnius Gaming Nitro, coming around for the 7th time here for the RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3 Championship of Season 21. Neil Swartz also pulls into the pits, obviously had a bit of an encounter on lap 1, and that sent him all the way to the back of the grid. Decides to pull the car in, get any damage repaired, and also get his first pit stop officially marked off. And now we'll have to climb back on the grid, climb back on the pace to try and find that grid traction. But we'll have to see how that goes for him. Anton Lammers, though, is sitting in 8th position with his teammate Lawrence Badenhorst just a little bit further behind him. They've just lost out on Jean-Ray Buerta, who pulled into the pit lane, but now Jonathan Chislett is hungry for blood. And just a little bit further in front of him is Badenhorst. And it almost looks like Jonathan Chislett is carrying a little bit more speed in that Lamborghini. As you can see, slowly creeping up lap by lap. And he's potentially going to get right on the rears of that McLaren as they wrap around here for the next couple of laps. But only time's going to tell. David van Beek, though, right on the backside of Martin Radenbach. Jean-Ray du Toit has given him some space. Unfortunately, not able to keep up with the McLaren driver. Now David van Beek will be pushing on strong behind the BMW of Martin Radenbach, who will be feeling the pressure. Alex Petro pulls into the pit lane to get his first pit stop served. We'll see how that one goes for him as well. And as we come across the line, though, is a couple more drivers. We just saw Gerrit Pretorius coming across again after he had already completed his pit stop. So now just trying to climb back up on the grid as well. Now Lawrence Badenhorst is feeling still the pressure from Jonathan Chislett, but he is dipping back a little bit as his teammate in front, Anton Lammers, is trying to catch up to the likes of Chris Collison, who currently sits in 7th position. And Conrad Martin, the final member there of the Treehouse Works Racing, is just a little bit further in front, leading out the pack for the main team over there and chasing down on the back of Jean-Ray du Toit. And that is exactly where the pressure relieval is coming from David van Beek, because he's got the fight happening just behind him. But now David van Beek actually has Jean-Ray du Toit on his backside, and Jean-Ray du Toit has found his traction once more, trying to get past the McLaren driver, who's now lost out his drive from Martin Radenbach. So I believe there could have potentially been a little bit of argy-bargy between the two, because they were right next to each other. And now there's quite a big gap, 1.3 seconds of a gap between Van Beek and Radenbach. So now Jean Detroit has the potential here to attack and overtake, but Conrad Martin is not far behind. As you can see him just a little bit further there in the helicam. Switching back though to our trackside cameras now, and Jean Detroit will be catching up, as you can see, ever so closely creeping up. Chris Collison pulls in to get his first pit stop done of the race and perform that undercut strategy. Alvin Preem now up into 12th position after a couple of the overtakes have happened, starting in 17th. 5 positions up already for him, so that's incredible for his sake. Kyle Henderson though is unfortunately off for the Ferrari Treehouse Works Racing team, and that is super unfortunate for him. And let's actually go back 10 seconds just to see what happened. Actually wasn't enough, should have gone back about 30 odd seconds, but super unfortunate there for Kyle Henderson. Looks like he just carried a little bit too much speed into that chicane, carried it off the track, and once you touch that grass, it is a trap of pure nature, and it pulls that car in as hard as it possibly can. Rob van der Heever though, the number 18 car, is still holding it out around track, trying to catch up now to Cara Pretorius, who's a little bit further on in front of him. And Kyle Henderson now stuck in between, actually, all the drivers with 1 pit stop left to go. He's got 2 pit stops left to go. So, unfortunately, falling down the pack slightly. But Jakun Odia is got a couple of drivers around him. He's got Alvin Preem pushing on behind him. Alvin Preem, sorry, just a little bit further on in front of him. But the likes of Arnold Kraus just a little bit further in front of him. So, we'll have to see how that goes. But Francois Buerta and Janro Buerta, both the Buertas still fighting each other relatively hard. Conrad Martin will try and gain that traction back that he did lose, because he is starting to pull a bit more of a gap now to the likes of Jean Detroit, and it is going to become a little bit bigger and bigger if he does not overtake now and gain that advantage. But we'll have to see how it goes for him as he keeps on sending around track. Jean Mostardo is still holding on as much as he possibly can, coming to the end of this race. And apologies about that, guys, just quickly trying to get my software minimized there. All good though, we're back in action. Cool. So yeah, so like I mentioned, John Mostert is holding off our top 10 right now, but he does have Alvin Preem and Jakun Odia tailing on as fast as possible behind, and Jean Detroit has given a little bit more breathing room once again to David van Beek, but I have a feeling it is going to be up and down for these two. Constant action throughout the next hour and 12 minutes here of this race. We'll have to see how that goes. But Herman Percival now 1.7 seconds up from the likes of Ron van der Walt, and it's about a 1.7 second gap between the two. Ron van der Walt does hold the fastest lap time though of a 1:33.1, and he just set that last lap, so he is beginning to catch ever so slightly, but he's going to have to try and stay consistent because Herman Percival is sending it to his heart's content to hold that car down to the first position mark on the podium stand. Martin Rundbach will hold off third right now, but he does have a long triumphant line of cars just a little bit further behind, trying to hunt down for that position. But like we mentioned, guys, it is Alton Park and anything can happen at this circuit, as we have seen in prior instances. Alvin Preem though is hunting down on the back of his fellow McLaren, of another fellow McLaren driver, of Jean Mostert, who is just a little bit further behind, in front for the Sky Tempesta Racing, as they still hold on tightly as possible. But Alvin Preem is coming for the McLaren Racing team, the beautiful blue and orange traditional colors right on the back side of that car as they come around for a couple more times, really looking close. And it's a long battle right now, the battle for 10th between Jan Mostert, Alvin Preem, Jakun Odia and Arno Kraus. All of them really pushing on to the back sides of each other, and Arno trying to keep on as much as he can in the Porsche. Jakun Odia is also pulling his own weight, trying to keep up on the backside of Alvin Preem, and John Mostert is feeling the pressure here as he's got a long line of cars that really want that top 10 just from him. Unfortunately, we have lost a driver, and that's Alex Pitro, who's pulled out of the race, which is super unfortunate to see. He went in for a pit stop and did not come out. So obviously some form of failure, but I'm going to assume that is either some form of network failure or disconnecting from server, and that is super unfortunate to see. But Neil Swartz now holds off the 21st mark, the driver who had a little bit of an incident towards the start of the race, but he does have time to try and pull it back. Just in front of him though is Kyle Henderson, who he is catching quite rapidly in this race. So we'll have to see how it goes for them. But currently Hansi Mayberg for the Team Tryhard Racing is holding on strong as well for the McLaren number 526. And just in front of him is Jean-Ray Buerta, who's also just trying to make every second count here with doing the undercut strategy, it is crucial to keep your mind clock in time and not begin to set slower lap times just because you're out in the open. This is the moments where you have to keep that speed up, or else the undercut will not work and you will go back down, further down back on the grid from not getting those lap times down during your undercut. So that's definitely what he's going to be hoping to do. Jean Roberta in 14th, Arno Kraus in 13th position, comes out now in 18th actually after performing his pit stop, and Yaku Nordia in 12th position. No longer has that pressure from behind from Arno Kraus as he pulls into the pit lane, but now Alvin Prim will have a little bit more of an attacking fight from behind as Yaku Nordia no more chance of being overtaken from behind. So now all he can do is focus on ahead, and John Mustad is going to have to watch out for this train. A little bit further on ahead, Jonathan Chisholm in a little bit of a no-man's zone. He's a good 2.5 or so seconds away from Lawrence Badenhorst and 6 seconds away from John Mustad. So lots and lots of gap for him over here. He's just trying to make it work in the time frame that he's got. But Lawrence Badenhorst now trying to get on the backside of his teammate before the end of this race, trying to find as much as he possibly can. But Martin Rodenbach in the number 6, in 6th position, number 465 BMW, is going to try and do everything that he possibly can as well. Conrad Martin, a little bit further on in front, is trying to find everything he can to bring it home. And looking at our virtual grandstand, everybody's still enjoying their time as much as they possibly can. And currently Ron van der Walt actually has gotten the overtake done. Didn't even notice it, but I believe Herman Percival might have had a bit of an incident. Ron van der Walt is up into first position, 3.5 seconds away from David van Wyk. So unfortunately Herman Percival, definitely something happened there. Drops down to third position, now has to try and climb back up, and he's got Jano de Toit just a little bit further on behind him. And that is a really unfortunate one to see, because last time we did see him leading this race up in first. This time, unfortunately, a little bit further down beyond the pack. And he's going to really have to try and climb back up as hard as he possibly can. Currently, David van Wyk in the McLaren Racing Neom team, that's what it was called last time, is trying to just hold on to the second place. It's a purely natural second place. He's not there because of pit stops or not performing a pit stop where others have. This is his fight for second and a chance at the podium here for Alton Park, round 7 of the RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3 Championship. This is the Pro-Am division here, and just a reminder once again that the Pro division is also being broadcasted by fellow commentator Stephen Koenig here on the RaceFace.Pro YouTube channel, so also make sure to go ahead and have a look at that. But currently David van Wyk trying to catch up now to Ron van der Walt, who's really flying for the Pandacity team, and trying to find as much time as he possibly can. Jano de Toit in 4th position. The Pandacity Infiltrate driver is really pushing himself to the absolute limit here. His fellow teammate in the same car, Neil Swartz, is much further down on the line and is trying to just make everything count with 1 hour and 6 minutes left of racing here. Arno Kraus also just trying to find his width, and he's got Chris Collison behind him. All the early pit stoppers coming into play over here to get those pit stops done nice and early. And now actually Chris Collison from under pressure from Francois Buerta, or it's actually not Francois Buerta, that's Yaku Nordia, sorry, he's also done his pit stop, and Neil Swartz will try and gain up to the top of them. But Francois Buerta is holding on tightly from Rob van der Heever, who's just a little bit further on behind him. So these two are going to be fighting for quite some time, because two drivers that have been fighting for quite some time this season so far, and I don't think it's going to stop for the final couple of races here for RaceFace.Pro. So we're going to have to see how it goes for them. Makara Pretorius, also one of our drivers with 1 pit stop left, is trying to catch up to Hansi Myberg, who still has 2 full pit stops left. So currently ahead of schedule for him, and now he's trying to find his race pace, finding other drivers who are setting slightly faster than him, and trying to keep that pace up, especially with being 1 pit stop down. He needs to not keep that average up in order to benefit as much as he possibly can without losing too much time compared to other drivers out on grid. So let's see how that goes for him. But coming around with 1 hour and 5 minutes left, David van Wyk is actually catching Ron van der Walt. This went from 3.5 now to 3.1, and now unfortunately 3.4, so he is losing slightly as Herman Percival is beginning to catch up, as well as Jano de Toit. And Conrad Martin a little bit further on behind all of them is in a fight of his own right now, as Martin Rodenbach has unfortunately fallen back behind him. So now it's going to be a fight between the BMW and the McLaren driver for the battle for 4th position over here. So we'll have to see how it goes for them. But Lawrence Badenhorst in 7th position has gotten ahead of his teammate of Anton Lammers. So potentially done a switch around or a traditional proper pass like we usually see in GT3 racing. Difficult to this circuit, but definitely possible. So not too sure what's happened there. But clean racing nonetheless from the Treehouse Works Racing team as it gets to the final moments of the first hour of this race. Almost breaking under that 1 hour mark. 54 minutes left of racing here. And then we can call it a night here for round 7 of the RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3 Championship for Alton Park. Up under here, a little bit further down behind in Ferrari 296 Griffin Sim Racing, pushing on behind Francois Buerta, and Arno Kraus, after completing his pit stop, is just trying to find that traction again, keeping in quite a good slip right now with a couple of other drivers who have also completed their pit stops. But unfortunately, Francois Buerta is getting caught up behind some other drivers who've already completed pit stops. So he is behind schedule compared to them, which is unfortunate to see, but it is how undercut racing goes. But Jean-Ray Buerta currently leads our undercutters in 12th, followed by Caio Pretorius, who's a little bit further on behind him, but actually quite a margin behind him. And to think they actually pitted at the same time shows that Caio Pretorius, unfortunately, not finding the time he would want. 12.5 seconds of a gap between him and Jean-Ray Buerta. So a little bit of a difference coming between the two. Jean-Ray Buerta having a little bit more experience in the undercut strategy. He does know how to keep the pace on that car when the time matters. When you can't see anyone in front of you nor behind you, that's the moments when you really have to keep yourself on rails for as many laps as possible. That's exactly what Jean-Ray Buerta is going to do. Conrad Martineau still trying to hold off from Martin Rodenbach and making it ever so harder every single lap. Martin Rodenbach and both of them just contradicting each other the entire time, because two different car models, one front engine straight 6 compared to the likes, oh that's a V6, sorry, compared to the likes of the V8 McLaren. Very different cars over here, mid-engine versus front engine. And so some having better benefits at certain parts of the tracks and others at the other parts of the track. So we'll have to see how this is going to affect them in the long run, because these two are going to be on top of each other for quite some time trying to get those final positions in. But almost with an hour left of racing here, Conrad Martin is just holding out just in front of the likes of Jean-Ray Toit, who's, the likes of Conrad Martin. And Jean-Ray Toit, a little bit further on in front, is now putting immense amounts of pressure on Herman Percival and David van Wyk. 3 seconds of a gap to the likes of Ron van der Walt. So it's quite a long train over here. Battle for first is about 4 car lengths long. Obviously, good amount of distance between Ron van der Walt and David van Wyk, but from there, it's all of them just trying to catch up to the race leader. Oh, David van Wyk almost finds himself in a very bad situation, runs wide, thankfully manages to save the car, but this is going to be the pressure then from behind, and currently Herman Percival is about to be overtaken. Oh, and that's unfortunate. Let's quickly go back 20 seconds to see what happens over here. So Herman Percival just coming around the corner, and just behind him is Jean-Ray Toit, getting a little bit of a better run off from him on the outside line now. Did they make contact, or was it just a traditional falling off the track? Oh, and that side-on contact, unfortunately. Herman Percival just making a little bit of a front-end tap on Jean-Ray Toit, and he has fallen down the pack, down to 7th, and decides to pull the car in to get the damage repaired and get that first pit stop done. No point in fighting up there if the car is damaged. So unfortunate for him, he's going to be pulling the car in, and definitely one of note. A couple people there in the virtual grandstand, Royco Gaming, saying, hey, is a crossplay. Unfortunately, ACC is not crossplay between console and computer. I believe it is crossplay between Xbox and PlayStation, but unfortunately, PC cannot play with Xbox and PS5. So unfortunate for that. But yeah, this is a ACC PC league, so you will need a PC to operate in this league, which is an unfortunate one that there is no crossplay. but it is definitely just because of the differences in the games and the differences of drivers, as well as the fact that console has zero chance for cheaters, and PC, you know, there's always chance for that. You do not want to be mingling with stuff like that. But a little bit further on in the background, Conrad Martin is really starting to feel the pressure now, because Martin Rodenbach is finally starting to say, okay, enough's enough. I've been sitting behind you for quite some time. It's about time I make the move on you and get this done and dusted. Almost actually losing his BMW with how hard he's pushing. You can see him over there almost just climbing off of the rails, off the curb, and onto the grass section of the track. And that could have ended badly, but thankfully it did not for the BMW driver, the number 465. And still just trying to hold on, but he has lost a little bit of time now to the likes of Conrad Martin, who will pull away with the time he's been given. 3.8 seconds of a gap though to David van Wyk and Herman Percival, and then Ron van der Walt a whole 3.2 seconds ahead of David van Wyk. So he is really living the life right now up in the front of this grid, and not too much of a threat for him whatsoever, but he has to be wary. 59 minutes left of racing. It is still a full hour, and absolutely anything can happen in that full hour. Jean Mostard a little bit further behind the likes of Jean-Ray Buerta, but a full pit stop down, unfortunately, so he's not actually fighting this one. In terms of actual placing on the track, he is fighting, but in terms of what he has to do, it is not a fight right now for him, because Jean-Ray Buerta is a full pit stop ahead, so they'll have to see how that one's going to go for them. But coming on still strong, 58 minutes left of racing, and so far no penalties have been administered. And I'm hoping, as I say that, I hope we do not have any penalties administered, because that would really suck if I go and say it and someone gets a penalty, because I will get the message after the race to say I've cursed someone. So let's hope that's not the case, especially with some of our drivers here who really have a good chance of finishing well tonight. Cara Pretorius in the Griffin Sim Racing down in 13th position, just trying to find any way he can to bring up pace. So we'll have to see how it goes for him. But unfortunately for drivers we have lost, we have also unfortunately lost Kyle Henderson, who's pulled out of this race. So only 20 drivers left on the grid for Neil Swart in 20th. And he's going to have to try and climb around track once again. Martin Rodenbach, though, pulls into the pit lane and decides that the fight is not worth it. And he's actually delaying himself behind Conrad Martin. And now it is going to be a three-way Treehouse Works Racing team orders over here. 4th, 5th, and 6th. 4th for Conrad, 5th for Lawrence Badenhorst, and 6th for Anton Lammers. And then a little bit further behind would obviously be Kyle Henderson, but unfortunately no longer in this race. Super unfortunate one to see. But the racing does definitely continue, and it does not stop here. With 57 minutes left to go, and the GT3 cars are still winding it out on track to try and make these final moments count. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is round 7 out of round 8. This is the second last round of season 21 for RaceFace.Pro, and so these drivers are really going to be wanting to try and find a way to get around this for the second last time. You do not want to waste this opportunity. If you can bring home a win here, this could definitely be a good one for your running for the championship finish. So we'll have to see how that goes for these drivers, as not too much left to go now. 56 minutes, it does look like a lot, but that time does shorten quite quickly depending on how much fun you're having or how much pressure you're getting from some of the drivers behind you. So we'll have to see how that keeps on going for all of these drivers. Hansi Maiberg, though, is closing in on the back of some other drivers. He's holding off in front of Chris Collison, who's got a good train of cars. Francois Buerta is behind him. Arno Kraus has just gotten ahead of Francois Buerta, and Jaco Nordier just a bit further behind, and Rob van der Heever in 19th. So the battle for 14th is definitely on here, but obviously it's a mix of drivers with 2 mandatory pit stops and a mix of drivers with 1 mandatory pit stops. So a little bit of a differentiation between there, and obviously the ones with 1 mandatory pit stop have a bit of an advantage with being a whole pit stop ahead in terms of mandatories. So definitely a 1-up for all of them who have done their pit stops nice and early, and they can now enjoy that and not actually racing too hard against the people with 2 pit stops left to go. So I'll have to see how that does turn out for them. But Alvin Preem still holding out in 8th position. Jonathan Schildred ahead of him in 7th position. And just a little bit further in front of him is 6th position for Anton Lammers. who's trying to catch up to his teammate now, and then his next teammate after that. But Ron van der Walt is still holding out 3.7 seconds between him and David van Wyk. David just not catching how he would have intended to, but Herman Percival is catching up to him as they are beginning to close up these gaps ever so slightly. But there is still relatively the same gap between the top three. Around about 3.5 seconds separates the top three between each car. So loads of different distance to work with between the top three of here, Ron van der Walt, David van Wyk, and Herman Percival. But they do still have 54 minutes left of full-blown racing. Conrad Martin in 4th though, and Lawrence Badenhorst in 5th. As well as Neil Henderson still just trying to find his traction. And Rob van der Heerde and Jaco Nordia a little bit further on behind, also putting an immense amount of pressure on each other. Like we mentioned, this is the battle for 14th position, currently being led by our RaceFace head admin over here of Hansi Myberg, who holds down 15th, and I believe he's lost out to Chris Collison, and I believe that is indeed the case. Chris Collison getting past Hansi Myberg now for the remainder of this race, and now Hansi will have to try and climb, but he is actually letting a couple of drivers pass, lets the likes of Anton on a cross pass, and I believe that is also just from being the role of a RaceFace admin. You do not want to ruin other people's races for the greed of your own, but oh my goodness, Francois Berta almost just wiped out half a grid right there. So let's flash back 20 seconds. I hope this didn't just go and crash my game. Okay, no, we're all good. So Francois Berta comes onto the final embankment before the start-finish straight, and I believe he just started to lose the car and almost wiped out in front of the other driver. So you can see he loses the rear, tries to snap back, and almost snaps back right in front of Jaco Nordia, and that could have almost been a crucial accident. That could have been bad, but thankfully managed to keep the car out on track. Francois Berta manages to, he loses 2 positions, but thankfully doesn't take anybody out in the process. So continues to push now, no harm done whatsoever other than his own position, which he can definitely work on. But Alvin Preem is also up into 8th and still fighting it out, but he does have Jean-Ray Berta in 9th. So Jean-Ray Berta in 9th position in fighting it out is now got Martin Radenbach behind him in 10th. So currently the leading 2 for our one-stop strategists, just trying to find the undercut and make it work for this race here at Alton Park. And the big question is going to be like whether it is actually going to work or whether or not it is going to work, because that is a big one that comes into play here for Alton Park. And Jean-Ray Mostert and Jean-Ray Letoit down in 11th and 12th. Cara Pretorius in 13th, followed by Chris Collison in 14th position for the Stinger Racing Ford Mustang, and Arnold Kraus in 15th. Still just trying to hold on as much as he possibly can. Pulls into the pit lane though is Hansi Myberg, coming to serve his first pit lane. Sometimes Hansi does pull in and does not pull out just for the sake of not wrecking other races, but he might still pull out over here and get the race going. 2 mandatory pit stops left for him, and still holding out on track. Jean-Ray Berta actually pulling a little bit of grass out the track there with him, unfortunately going a little bit out wide with the Porsche, and that will potentially lead to a little bit more tire degradation, so you will have to watch out for that one. The more grass you touch, the more the tires are going to become worn and affected, so you do have to watch out for that one to not cause too much strain on those tires, otherwise you will feel them towards the end of the race. Now some drivers might be able to pull a single strategy here with no pit stop, no tires being changed, but I highly doubt it. This is a very technical circuit, loads of corners, and I believe it is going to create a huge burden on these tire sets. I think we definitely will have to see 1 tire set being changed for each of these cars, but we might see some brave survivors out there who rock the car out on 1 set of tires, especially on your cars that are slightly more used to handling pressure on tire degradation. And those could potentially be drivers to come across and really undercut, because they save a lot of time in their pit stop without having to change tires. So it could potentially be an incredible one, but we'll have to keep on watching to see what happens, as Alvin Preem currently holds off in 8th position. I'm still waiting for our top 8 or so around about to get their first pit stops done. All of them just holding out on track to try and make it count, but currently David van Wyk is not catching up. 3.9 seconds now, so putting on a little bit of time each lap to the likes of Ron van der Walt, and almost allowing him to actually run away with this race. And it is unfortunate to see, and I believe the back marker in front of him is not going to make it a hard one whatsoever. That is Hansi Myberg, is definitely not going to make it a hard overtake, as he will definitely abide by all the blue flag rules here at RaceFace.Pro, but definitely a good one indeed, as everybody else still holding it around track. Jean Mostert in 12th position, and Martin Radbach in 11th. We're going to have a short break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you guys at the 45th minute mark to declare the start of our sprint series. We'll see you guys then. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for just pardoning me on that break. Just quickly went to have some water and grab some medicine for the throat, but we're all good, and we're going to continue to push on here for the final 45 minutes of racing here. And this is officially sprint race territory. Like most of you who would watch my streams over here, whenever I do commentate, is we always declare sprint race territory once we hit our 45-minute mark. This is the time where drivers need to push, because it is where it matters the absolute most. But looking at our virtual grandstand, Johan Pretoria saying, let's go Van Wyk, and then asking, are you leaving the commentary box, Tristan? Unfortunately, yes, this is my final night in the weekly RaceFace commentary box. After tonight, I will no longer be, unfortunately, broadcasting the Pro-Am streams, and I will be moving on to more bigger events and more scaled events where things have a little bit more of a break in between them. Unfortunately, I do quite a couple of things, so especially also managing a team here at Omnius Gaming, so just a little bit more time for myself during the week is definitely one of worthy note. But without further ado, once we hit our 45-minute mark, it is tradition to go through our current standing grid order. Run for the vault, the number 99 McLaren 720S of the Panda team leads out our race. David Van Wyk of the Neom Racing, number 17 McLaren, sits out in second position. Herman Percival, the number 44 of the Omnius Gaming Nitro, sits in third position, followed by Conrad Martin in the Treehouse Works Racing's number 163 in fourth position. Lawrence Badenhorst, the Treehouse Works Racing's number 28 in fifth position, followed by Anton Lammers, the Treehouse Works Racing's number 149 in sixth position. Then Jonathan Chislett in the Lamborghini number 996 in seventh position. Alvin Preeman, the McLaren Racing number 52 McLaren 720S in 8th position, followed by Jean-Ray Buerta, the Team Karugma Racing's number 153 Porsche 992 in 9th position. Martin Rundbach, the Pandas, the Infiltrates number 77 Lamborghini in 11th place, followed by Jean Mostert, the Sky Tempesta Racing's number 7 McLaren 720S in 12th position. Carrot Pretorius, the GSRT number 72 Ferrari 296 in 13th position, followed by Chris Collison, the Stinger Racing's number 222 Ford Mustang in 14th position. Arno Kraus, the Team Tryhard Racing's number 8110 Porsche 992 in 15th position. Rob van der Heever, the Griffin Sim Racing's number 51 Ferrari 296 in 16th position. Jaco Nordia, the KSR Force number 38 McLaren 720S in 17th position, followed by Francois Buerta, the Treehouse Works Racing's 111 McLaren 720S in 18th position. And Neil Swartz, the Pandas, the Infiltrate number 32 Lamborghini Evo 2 in 19th position. And following off and closing off our final driver out on grid is Hansi Meyerberg, the Team Tryhard Racing's number 526 McLaren in 20th position. And that rocks off our grid order for the remainder of this race. We've got 41 minutes left of racing here, and this is officially where things begin to get hectic. This is where drivers really have to show that raw pace, and this is where strategy is going to come into play. David Van Wyk, the McLaren driver, pulls out of the pit lane now with his first pit stop completed of the night in 6th position. He's going to come out a little bit further down into 9th or 10th, depending on if he gets past Martin Rodenbach, and he does indeed stay ahead of Martin Rodenbach, who almost got the undercut there on David Van Wyk. A couple of other drivers also came in. Jean de Toit comes in to serve his second and final pit stop of this race, and after halfway mark, I'm sure those tires are definitely buggered, and he's definitely going to be having to change, add some fuel, and get going for the final couple of minutes of this race. Jaco Nordia also a little bit further down, still in 16th position. Rob van der Heever comes in to serve his final pit stop of this race. Jean Mostert comes in to serve his first pit stop, unfortunately, so that is going to set him back a little bit. Neil Swartz already out on track, no pit stops left to go for him. And now it's just our top 7 to round off our 2 mandatory pit stops needing to be done. With 40 minutes left, this is going to get interesting. So currently, Ron van der Vault, 9.8 seconds of a gap between him and Herman Percival. So unfortunately, it's all going to come down to your pit strategy for Herman Percival in terms of if he's going to be able to catch up. Ron van der Vault seems to be on absolute fire tonight in terms of where he is on track, and he's really pushing that McLaren to its absolute limit. But the race is not over here for Herman Percival. He does have the time, but unfortunately he is losing time almost a second or so a lap, trying to catch up to Rowan van der Walt and just not getting there. Conrad Martin is a good 12.9 seconds away from him though, so he does have the space to fight. So it's all going to be down to the likes of Evan Percival if he's going to have the time, if he's going to have the power and the strength to get that car going and get this race finished in first position following Rowan van der Walt, or if he is going to be just behind him in second. It's all going to come down to the final 39 minutes here for round 7 at Alton Park here for the RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3 Championship of season 21. Almost a 21st season finished off. It is the 21st anniversary here for RaceFace.Pro, and for humans we celebrate that, but with RaceFace.Pro we celebrate every season here. So 21 seasons already of racing. Next season already 22, starting the 22nd season of RaceFace.Pro. Unfortunately, I won't be here to talk through that one, but it's still going to be a phenomenal season, and RaceFace will still continue to be a phenomenal host here with all of its amazing sponsors and drivers. But currently still holding out there, 38 minutes left of racing, and Rowan van der Walt looks like it's going to be a one for him, but 38 minutes, anything can happen. Herman Percival has been known to make those last minute changes, those last minute moves that nobody expects, and coming into the pit lane now, as I actually say it, to serve that pit stop and get potentially an undercut on Rowan van der Walt. If he really gets that car out on track and finds the speed in that Honda, he could potentially be seeing himself for a chance for P1 here. But it is going to come down to how he performs in this duration now of being one pit stop up compared to Rowan van der Walt, because this is where he needs to shine. This is where he needs to set those lap times. He's got clean air in front and behind him, so he now needs to send it as hard as he possibly can to make sure that he sticks this coming to the end of this race. Herman Percival though, and David van Wyk a little bit further up in front though, in fourth, so has gotten the undercut on the likes of Herman Percival, who's out in fifth position. So David van Wyk trying to send it around track now, and now only 3 drivers up in the front with 2 mandatory pit stops left to go. We do also have Francois Bertha in 12th, now 13th, who needs to still complete his 1 mandatory pit stop, and as I mentioned, it comes into the pit lane to serve that pit stop. And Rowan van der Walt comes into the pit lane as well to serve his first pit stop and now get it done and dusted. Will it be a splash and dash, or will it be a full pit stop? I'm assuming it's going to be a full one, because we've already gone through halfway distance of this race, and you do not want to be limping on fuel from the start of this race unless you went full tank, which not many drivers do, because you know it is easier to start the car on lighter fuel loads and potentially carry better speeds and carry less fuel around the track. But we'll have to see how it goes for him coming out of this pit lane. But incredible stuff though, as we do have a couple of people in our virtual grandstand. Oh, and Rowan van der Walt just coming out in front of his teammate there, and I believe that might be Neil Swartz, or it might be the likes of Jean-Ray du Toit, but I believe it is Neil Swartz, just a little bit further behind. It is. But we do have a couple of people in our virtual grandstands, and the Hunt Pro is saying, we will be missing you. Will someone be taking over the pram? Unfortunately, that is not up to me to give answers, but as far as I know, I don't think there will be anybody taking over the pram streams, unless there is somebody else that is going to step up. But as far as I'm concerned, it is definitely not going to be capable for Steven to go and release a whole nother broadcast as well. He is already doing phenomenally in the Pro, and unfortunately I think Pro-Am will not be covered for the next season unless something changes. But again, like I say, not the person to talk to. That's up to Hansi Myberg as well as Bertus Hugo, who can give you the answers to that one. But a little bit more chatter. Lynette van der Walt, good luck Ron van der Walt, so supporting on a family member. So Ron van der Walt currently sitting in third position. Hansi Myberg say, not catching my mojo on this track and new car. No, I can definitely get that, and it is a difficult track by far. Hansi Myberg really not finding the grips there in the McLaren, coming from the BMW, switching over cars here for Alton Park. Not an easy track whatsoever. And just to think, I wanted to drive the Bentley around here, the big old Bentley. I'll be driving it next week, potentially for the Red Bull Ring final race on Wednesday, but we'll have to see how all that goes. But Johan Pretorius also saying, good try Hansi. Hansi Myberg saying thanks, he's really struggling. And Johan Pretoria is saying definitely him too. Unfortunately, 4th DNS today. Work keeps getting away from the racing at the moment, and I'm pretty sure new on the wheel as well. Pretty sure you'll get your mojo back quick. It's great to see everybody in the virtual grandstand giving each other support, cheering each other on. And as you can see, there is a general struggle here at some of our more difficult circuits for all of these drivers. And Panda Man also saying, let's go Van Wyk, podium finish, here we come. Van Wyk could not even be a podium. This could be a P1 finish for him, a first place, another one for him, as we saw in a couple of the previous races, especially at Nürburgring, where he also finished incredibly well. And Panda Man also saying, sorry Hansi, always another race, time to reset, refocus, and race. Definitely so. Very, very motivational and inspiring words. Time to just put your head down, focus up, and try again. There is always another race. That is the joy of sim racing. There is never going to be the time where someone tells you, nope, there's no more racing happening, because that is only for the moments in real life where you might run out of fuel and you can no longer race. In virtual, you can simply click a couple of buttons and boom, you've got a whole new tank of petrol, a whole new tank of fuel actually, sorry, and you're ready to go for another full round around track. So definitely always another time, and every single person has experienced a bad race. Every person has experienced that unlucky DNF. Every person has experienced taking somebody else out. It is a part of the sport. It's a part of the hobby to make mistakes. Everybody does it. It is normal, and it's always also just good to cheer each other on in moments like these where people might struggle, and always possible to actually outsource for help in most cases. But back to our racing. Apologies for keeping us on a bit of a static cam there while we were speaking. David Van Wyk coming to the pit lane, as well as Conrad Martin, to serve those final pit stops. And Conrad Martin actually undercut David Van Wyk for second position. This is going to be crucial coming into the end of this race. But Ron van der Walt is out at the end of this now, and David Van Wyk actually comes out of the pit lane. Did he get a penalty? Because he still has one pit stop left. I could have sworn David Van Wyk pulled in to get that pit stop done. That's odd. I actually just saw him coming out of the pit lane. I think he might have been administered a penalty. Not too sure though. Where's Herman Percival? He's down in 7th right now, but he does not have any pit stops left to go. So now he's just really trying to find his grip and make sure that he can get this race done and dusted with the time he's got left. 32 minutes of absolute push and pull racing for all of these drivers. Lawrence Badenos, Anton Lammers, Anton Kraus, David Van Wyk, Conrad Martin, and Ron van der Walt still needing to perform those pit stops, as well as Jonathan Chislett and the likes of Alvin Preem. Everybody else, pretty much, other than the likes of Francois Buerta, still needing, everybody else besides these guys have got no pit stops left to go, and will be holding on tight until the end of this race. So we'll have to see how it goes for all of them. But this is where things become interesting. 30 minutes left of racing. This is where cars can begin to drop off of cliffs. It is a term that is hard to describe if you've never been in the car, but it's a term that is very fiercely recognized by sim racing drivers. When the car falls off the cliff, it is the moment when the race is coming to a closure, the car's tank is emptying, the car is becoming lighter, but so is the tires. The tires begin to degrade more and more, to the point where you've got a light rocket ship with worn tires, and that is a chance of potential carnage if you cannot manage your car. We've seen it before in the past, where tire wear can really knacker the car and make it difficult to control, especially at a circuit such as Alton Park. So we'll have to see how that goes, because this could potentially be lots of action in the final parts of this race. It is the type of track, it's the type of tire wear that we could be seeing lots of final lap, final 5 lap, final 2 lap, final lap action. And it's always an interesting one to see lots of action, especially coming towards the end of a season. You love to see final lap action, to see who will be taking home those few little points extra from coming across the line in front of their rival. And it's always a good thing to see a good challenge being opposed by everybody on grid. But now the time is nigh for all these drivers to make it count when it really matters. Cara Pretorius in 13th, and Chris Collison a little bit further up in front of him in 12th. Half an hour left of racing here for our drivers. We've gone through 50 minutes of racing already, and now another half an hour to wrap up our full 80-minute stint here for round 7 at Alton Park at RaceFace.Pro. And this is going to be an interesting one to watch, as everybody is trying to hold out as long as they can with 30 minutes left to go. Now just under 30 minutes, actually breaking into the 20s. It is getting ever so close to coming towards the end of this race. And the Stinger Racing team, with support in the grandstand, are going to be doing their absolute all to make it to the end of the finish line without jeopardizing anything from finishing. And Johan Pretorius saying David's first pit apparently didn't register. That is really unfortunate, because that's what I could have sworn. He pulled into the pit lane and he came out, and I swear that was his first pit stop done. And then his second one almost looked like it didn't count at all. So super unfortunate from David. And Panaman also saying David's pit didn't register. So I thought it was me. I thought I could have potentially missed something during the session rolling out. But seems like it was not just me. Everyone in the virtual grandstand is also finding out about this, that David van Wyk actually didn't get a registered pit stop. So a little bit of a glitch coming from the game here, Assetto Corsa Competizione, and that is unfortunate to see. But there is nothing you can do this late into the race. It is a technical failure, something that we cannot control here at RaceFace, and it does happen from very solemn time to time. It is a rare occasion for something like that to happen, but sometimes it does happen. It's like a disconnect. I've known some drivers who have perfect internet, absolutely fast, wild speeds that works on absolutely everything, but dare they try and stay inside of an ACC server for longer than 15 minutes, and it's mission impossible. Sometimes the servers here at ACC a little bit jumpy and a little bit up and down. We do see it sometimes also with some of our drivers rubber banding quite a lot, and that is something we do see often. So it's unfortunate to see for the likes of David van Wyk not getting that pit stop registered. It has pulled him down quite far down from where he was fighting. He was fighting in front of Herman Percival, so now having to fight a little bit further down, still in the top 10 thankfully, but not where he would have wanted to be come the end of tonight's race. 27 minutes left of racing though. There is still time to make up. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, and with just under 15 minutes left of racing to go, we are now almost officially complete with this race here for RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3 Championship of Season 21, round number 7 out of 8 rounds. Next week we head to our final race at the Nürburgring, and that's going to be an excellent one to be watching, but we do still have 15 minutes left of racing here at Alton Park. Ron van der Walt is holding out in first position, all pit stops complete, and he is still sitting comfortably in first. Conrad Martin sits second from him with one pit stop left to go, which means he could potentially be overtaken by Herman Percival in third position, who is just a little bit further behind him. So once he has to actually complete that pit stop, Herman Percival will take second position, followed by Jean-Ray Buerta, the undercut guard who made the changes and made the overcuts very early into this race. In particular, on lap 1, as soon as the race started, decided to pull into the pit lane and get the car sorted and get that undercut going before anybody could even realize that. Sits in fourth position. Lawrence Buitenhorst is now currently sitting in fifth position. The Treehouse Works Racing's driver is second for his team, but both of them, Conrad Martin and Lawrence Buitenhorst, needing to get those pit stops complete. Jano de Toit is a little bit further behind him, currently putting a lot of pressure on him actually, just behind the likes of Lawrence Buitenhorst, and he's got no pit stops left to do. So currently fighting a driver that is technically meant to be behind him with 13 minutes left to go, but one pit stop still needed to be done by Buitenhorst, and it is proving to be quite a challenge for Jano de Toit to get past. David van Beek though is still sitting in 7th position, after what we seems to have picked up in the virtual grandstand as a pit recognition error. So David van Beek actually doing 3 pit stops compared to what everybody else was doing, 2. I believe he did 3 because one of them did not register for whatever reason, unless he got a penalty that I didn't see, but I don't think anybody actually saw any form of penalty. Anton Lammers though in 8th position, just pursuing on behind him, just trying to hold on for the Treehouse Works Racing team. He's got no pit stops left to go with 12 minutes left of this race. Martin Ranbach, the number 9 in 9th position, the number 465 BMW, also dropping quite far off on the grid. He was up into 3rd a little bit earlier on in this race, but now down to 9th after a couple of complications. So that's not the greatest to see, unfortunately, but thankfully still in this race, still pursuing, still fighting it out on track. Chris Collison in 10th position for the big Ford Mustang. The Stinger Racing team cheering on their driver now for the final 12 minutes around the clock, just trying to get it done and dusted. Jonathan Chislett in 11th position for the Lamborghini racing team of the number 996, just trying to hold out for the couple last minutes, just under 12 minutes now in a couple of seconds for Jonathan Chislett as he goes around track, just breaching outside of the top 10. Cara Pretorius, the driver we also saw doing an undercut very early on in this race, unfortunately not landing up where the likes of Jean-Ray Buerta landed up. They built up quite a gap between each other, well over 12 to 15 seconds, just after a couple of laps after their pit stops. And now a little bit further down is Cara Pretorius, just trying to fight it all out around track. On across the Team Tryhard Racing driver, the number 8110 Ferrari, Porsche, sorry, in 13th position, and he's got a little bit of pressure from Alvin Preem coming into the final sections of this race with 11 minutes to go. Alvin Preem could potentially begin to fight on the back. We did have a yellow flag there, not too sure where that was on track, but it is cleared now, which means all is fine to continue pursuing around track. But Arno Kraus could potentially be seeing himself under pressure now from the driver behind. Conrad Martin jumps into the pit lane though as well. So Alvin Preem is just going to need to hold on. The number 52 McLaren driver is really trying to pull up on the backside of that Porsche and potentially make an overtake come the end of this night, break up into 13th position and get up closer to the likes of Cara Pretorius. Jaco Nordia, also a little bit of challenging race tonight. No pit stops need to be done though, and just trying to gain and close up to the likes of Alvin Preem, because if Alvin and Arno make a little bit of an accident together, if they do actually drop quite a couple of seconds, that could be 2 free positions for Jaco Nordia. So he's going to have to try and keep an eye out on that. And further behind him is the likes of Jean Mouster, who's also had a little bit of a challenging track run tonight, down in 16th position, unfortunately, just trying to hold the McLaren around track. Rob van der Heever is in 17th position for the Griffin Sim Racing Ferrari, just trying to hold it out up until the end of this race now. And rounding off our grid so far, Francois Buerta, the Treehouse Works Racing's driver, the number 111 McLaren 720S just trying to keep it up. And Antti Marburg in 19th, obviously not racing right now in the pit lane, 23 laps down. And he's parked it for the remainder of this race. But everybody else still sending it around track, trying to hold out for these final minutes. Just under 10 minutes left of racing. And this is where things can start to become interesting, because you've got a long grid of cars here that are still trying to fight for position. So if we have a look at our track map, currently the number 77 is fighting Lawrence Badenhorst. And a little bit further down on the line as well, number 465, that's Martin Rodenbach. And just a little bit further behind him is Chris Collison. So these two could potentially be fighting each other come to the end of this race. And number 8110 on across, and Alvin Preem, like we spoke about, also putting loads of pressure on each other. And relatively the same everywhere else on grid. Herman Percival and David van Wyk right on top of each other. Now, no, as I go to him, unfortunately, Herman Percival seeing the pillar, seeing that is so unfortunate. Let's go back 20 seconds and see what happened here. So Herman Percival comfortably in front, goes off on the grass over there a little bit, comes around the next corner, climbs up on, just climbs on the curb and loses the rear of the Honda. And the Honda is so easy to unsettle, and unfortunately plants himself in the wall. And man, that is really unfortunate. He has pulled the car out of it, thankfully, but he has lost a whole load of positions, all the way down to 10th position, and he is going to be experiencing loads of side damage from that one. And man, that is so unfortunate to see coming to the final 8 minutes of this race. Jonathan Chisnett now right on the backside of him, trying to find a way around the limping Honda, who potentially has quite a bit of suspension damage after hammering that wall at those speeds. So the likes of David van Wyk, free position up for him as he's up into 5th position and not getting anywhere else for the moment. Lawrence Badenhorst is a little bit further up in front of him, but once he pits, he'll get him. That'll be 4th for him. But it looks like it's going to be a double podium for Pandacity. Ron van der Walt and Janner de Toit, two drivers from Pandacity Esports, and Janre Buerta for the Team Karugma Racing, holding it out in 2nd position, just trying to find a way out around for him in this race. And this could potentially be a good one for him, and he has really played the undercut cards to his liking over here. Unfortunately, quite a big gap between him and Ron van der Walt, about 28 seconds worth of gap. So it definitely won't be catchable unless Ron van der Walt has a massive incident coming towards the end of this race, which I doubt is going to happen. But 7 minutes left to go. We do have a yellow flag out on track, and that has not been resolved. That's our number 111 out on track, Francois Buerta. Let's go to our 20 seconds back and see what happened to Francois Buerta. And there we see him just spinning out, losing the car. Thankfully, not causing any other damage around track, flicking the car back out on track. Porsche jumping over the crescent, just getting past him, and Alvin Preem coming across him as well, just at the last minute over there before the braking zone. So a little bit of an unfortunate spin there for Francois Buerta, thankfully not eliminating his race entirely, but he is not going to be happy about that one, turning the car around, facing it towards the grandstands, and having to try and pull it back out on track. Jonathan Chisnett, though, in 10th. Herman Percival's lost out all the way to 12th now. So from 3rd, 4th, down to 12th position. Starting this race in 1st as well, down to 12th, unfortunately. After a really hard drive here at Alton Park, the Honda really not liking the curbs here. And when we saw the replay, he just ever so slightly put 2 wheels over that inside curb. Just at the start of the lap, not even a big curb whatsoever, just slightly ramped, and that unsettled the right side of the Honda, made it bounce, made the steering wheel rotate, and from there the rest was history. Unfortunately, not much Herman Percival could do, and now he's under pressure from Arno Kraus, who's been fighting with Alvin Preem the entire time because they're not catching up to the back of him. And I believe the damage that's on Herman Percival's car is really not helping him get to the end of this race. He's definitely got some form of suspension damage, and it is making that car hard to drive. If we go onto our drivable dash cam into our cockpit, you can definitely see there is some definite suspension damage on that Honda, having to hold the steering wheel sideways just to stay straight, and that is really slowing him down at this point in the race. As you can see, holding the steering wheel sideways just to stay straight. and not what you want to see, unfortunately. Thankfully, still keeping the car out on grid, but oh my goodness, is it hard to control. Not much he can do in that Honda. It is not being friendly to him with that wrecked suspension, and he's just trying to limp the car home with 4 minutes left to go. He is conceding a lot of positions, unfortunately, but there's nothing he can do in that Honda. Just trying to limp it around track before the end of this race. Man, that is unfortunate to see for Herman Percival. Ron van der Volta still sitting in first position as he wraps around track, actually overtaking Herman Percival now after he's had a rough time. And still Lawrence Badenhorst, no pit stop coming in from him. He still has not pitted with 4 minutes left to go. Eventually he is going to have to pull the car in, or else he will gain himself a 160-second time penalty, which is not what he wants. And I believe we have just lost the likes of Herman Percival. Just trying to look for him on our sheets over here, and unfortunately Herman Percival has decided to pull the car off the track, which is super unfortunate, but it is understandable. Just trying to get that car to carry it on towards the end. Massive suspension damage. It was not looking good for him, especially with 3 minutes left of racing, and he's not going to be chuffed about that one. He did really try, qualified first, he had the run, and unfortunately the car just not behaving like he wanted it to. I'm sure he'll jump into the virtual grandstand ever so shortly, like he did earlier, but that is so unfortunate. But with 3 minutes left to go, we have to look on ahead. We have to look at what is currently sitting on in front of us, because there is still fights going on around track. Lawrence Badenhorst is still one pit stop down. When is he going to come into pit? The madman holding it out till the absolute end, and he's coming across to the start-finish line now. This has to be it. I mean, he has to pull the car in and potentially come and pull it into for a pit stop. Let's see, is it going to be a pit for Lawrence Badenhorst? Is he going to hold it for a whole nother lap? Coming around onto the top crescent, he is holding the right side, and into the pit lane he is going to jump. So that's going to be an up for Conrad Martins, as well as Anton Lammers and David van Wyk, who's all going to gain a couple of positions here as the likes of Lawrence Badenhorst climbed into the pit lane. It is going to be a short pit stop for him, but it's only just stopping now. And here comes Conrad Martin, already flown past, and David van Wyk also already flown past. So up into 6th for him, up into 5th for Anton Lammers, and up into 4th for Conrad Martin. So a good train over there for the Treehouse Works Racing drivers. Unfortunately Lawrence Badenhorst serving that pit lane, serving that pit stop, takes him down to 9th. So Conrad Martin, Anton Lammers will be carrying the team up in front. Franco Buerta, Lawrence Badenhorst a little bit further on behind for the Treehouse Works Racing team. But now with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left to go, we are really starting to approach the final couple of minutes here of this race. Rob van der Heever in 16th position for the Griffin Sim Racing team is holding on as tight as he possibly can. 16th place for the Ferrari driver, just on the back of Jean Mustard, and this is for position. So with 1 minute and 58 seconds to go, we could potentially see an overtake coming in from here. But to look where our race leader is on track, he is currently progressing on a lap, which means he will come across the line one more time still before announcing the end of this race, the end of final lap. So next time he crosses the line, it will be the radio announcement that the leader is on the final lap, and then he will still have to go around one last time here around the very odd, very difficult Alton Park. David van Wyk is off though. Where's David van Wyk? Oh, hard into the wall, David van Wyk, and he's actually completely disconnected from the server there. Unfortunately, I didn't even get to review that one. Unfortunately, David van Wyk just completely looked like he hammered the wall hard and just decided, nope, this is not it. 1 minute and 10 seconds left to go. The pit stop, the toe back would have been overtime. He wouldn't even have finished the race. So really unfortunate there for him. Pulls the car in and does not get the finish that he wanted here at Alton Park. Martin Rodenbach, though, in 6th position, is going to finish strong here and gains a position from the likes of David van Wyk pulling the car in. So Ron van der Walt sitting out in first for the Pandacity team. The McLarens holding it out on grid as hard as they possibly can. And Gianro Buerta in second, really neck and neck with each other. Oh my goodness. Putting pressure. Gianro Buerta is trying to keep that second place. And there comes the leaders on final lap. 10 seconds back. Let's look at the chicane fight. And full entitlement there to Gianro Buerta. He had the space on the inside. He took it. He held it as much as he could. And that was the likes of Jean de Toit trying to push on the outside line and trying to find a way around and just not getting it. But this is the battle of the genres. This is genre, and behind him is Juandre, Genre de Toit, and Genre Buerta. Both of them fighting right now as hard as they possibly can. And this is going to be final lap for them as they come across the line. This is starting their last lap of racing as they head across. And now our race leader, Ron van der Walt, is going to be holding it out here, sending it around track for the last time of this race. The clock has officially struck. It is 10:15 at night here in South Africa. And this has officially time to move on and continue to progress further, as Martin Rundbach in 6th position. Chris Collison will not get past him. If he cannot get past him now, he's not going to get past him, because this is it, last lap for all of these cars. Ron van der Walt, though, is still roaming around track. Let's have a look where he is on the track map. And as you can see there, just on the bottom section of the track, one more turn for him, and then that's going to be the start-finish straight for our McLaren driver. And it has been an incredible run for Ron van der Walt, but coming across up the final embankment, Ron van der Walt takes first place once again for the Pandacity Infiltrate team. Incredible race from him. A very, very big margin of gap between him and the likes of Genre Buerta, who is a little bit further on behind still. You can see it quite a couple of corners behind. So Ron van der Walt going to be chuffed about that one. Pulls the car into the pit lane, and he's going to be done with that one for the time being. But wow, oh wow, incredible race. Loads of pushing all around. And Genre Buerta with a limping car in front, where Genre Buerta has actually lost out completely. He actually had an accident, because here comes Genre de Toit. They definitely had a bit of an argy-bargy, because Genre Buerta losing out on his 2nd position, unfortunately. Super sad to see that. Conrad Martin comes across in 3rd, followed by Anton Nummers, his teammate, to take 4th. And then Genre Buerta still limping across in 5th. Martin Radenbach comes across in 6th. Just behind him is Chris Collison in 7th. Lawrence Badenhorst in 8th position, holding out until the final corner over here. Behind him, Jonathan Chislett, also still trying to manage his way around circuit in the Lamborghini Huracan Evo GT3 Evo 2. And bringing it up the crescent for the final time over here. Crosses the line. Cara Pretorius a little bit further behind him, still coming across. He comes up the final crescent to finish off his race strong in 10th position. And Arno Kraus a little bit further on behind him as well, holding on as much as he possibly can. Alvin Preem and him have been fighting the whole time. They're the final 2 cars to come across the grid here for RaceFace.Pro. And wow, oh wow, what a race it has been. Incredible job from everybody. And this is going to be the final one here for me, unfortunately. But let's go to our commentary box and see if we can potentially get any of our podium finishers for a quick interview before we close up and wrap up here for the final time. And let's have a quick look. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, just quickly pulling up on the highlights reel. But a couple of people in our virtual grandstand, Herman Percival saying, what a night. David van Veek saying, better luck next season. This is broken. Unfortunately, just not enjoying the McLaren. And Stingers Racing saying, good job, Chris, finishing off nicely in 7th position. It's going to be a nice and hearty finish off for him. But Alton Park seems to have claimed the victims yet tonight that we have seen. It has been an incredible time for these drivers, as they have really tried to hold themselves out here for the final time. And we do have a couple of drivers in the virtual grandstand and in the interview rooms ready to be interviewed. But wow, oh wow, incredible race. So I believe Ron van der Walt came in on 1st position. Genre de Toit, I believe, came in 2nd. Genre de Toit 2nd. I'm just trying to figure out who came in 3rd, just to ensure that we have the correct order. Although I do not see another person here who came in 3rd position. So just trying to maybe check here for the final time before we wrap it up. But I know Ron van der Walt is our winner. Genre de Toit will come across in 2nd, I believe. And 3rd position, just trying to remember, but I don't think 3rd position is here. Alright, so we're going to start off then with our 3rd position coming across in a podium finish. Genre de Toit, how are you feeling after that incredibly enduring race here at Alton Park?
Yeah, that was an intense race. I had to do an amazing recovery drive because I spun out with Percival. But I was really surprised when I saw the guys pit and I was up for podium, so I'm not sure what happened, but yeah, I had an amazing battle with John Roberta. I need to apologize to him for that last lap because it was an amazing battle. He deserved at least third place.
Yeah, 100%. That was quite a battle you two had going on there. Unfortunately, we missed the final scenes. What happened was there contact between you and John Roberta near the end because we noticed he came across in fifth with a little bit of damage on the car.
Yeah, at the first chicane, he went a bit wide, and I just couldn't slow down enough, and I just tapped him, and it was just enough for him to spin out.
Man, that is super unfortunate, but it is racing. Sometimes things do happen, and that is an extremely unfortunate one. But well done. You have officially earned yourself another podium here for round 7. We head to our final round next week at the Red Bull Ring here for season 21. How are you feeling in the Lamborghini going into the Red Bull Ring in Austria for the final round here of season 21?
I'm a bit scared. Apparently, the Lamborghini is a handful there, so I'm gonna have to put in some practice because I think I'm fighting for a P2 or P1 in the championship as well. So it's gonna be a tough race, and I need to put in some practice.
100%. It is going to be one of the more easier circuits to learn. It's nice and short, definitely around the 1 minute mark, but it is still complicated, and it is still the final race of the season, and we do know you are definitely up there fighting for some good points. So definitely going to be looking forward to seeing what you can do next week at Red Bull Ring. But once again, phenomenal performance tonight. I'm going to give you the floor to mention anything that is currently on your mind, anything about your sponsors, anything about your team, or anything about anybody who helped you in preparation for tonight's race.
Yeah, firstly, just want to apologize again to Jean Roberta for the incident, and then thanks to Pandacity and the team members for helping us through this track and helping us, get better over time. So yeah, thanks to them, and I'm excited to continue racing with them.
Absolutely incredible. Well, not going to keep you too much longer. Have a phenomenal night of celebrations, and you've officially done it. Round 7 at Alton Park. We'll see you next week for round 8 at the Red Bull Ring. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and that was our third place run-up for Jean du Toit. But now, unfortunately, no second, that was second place, apologies. But now, bringing in our first place finisher for the second week now in a row from Nürburgring comes across as well in Alton Park with a massive gap. Massive performance coming in here for the McLaren driver, Ron van der Walt. Another P1 to your name for the Pandacity McLaren. How are you feeling after tonight's race at Alton Park?
How's it, Meneer? Yeah, feeling good, thank you. That was a lot more sweaty than what I thought. But yeah, it was a good race, it was fun. A lot of bumps and umps, but it was good.
Absolutely. I mean, there was constant fighting up and down. And obviously, you didn't actually manage to get that first place jump on Herman Percival, 0.02 of a second separating. And how did that actually work out? How did you manage to get in front of the Honda?
It's the fourth or fifth last turn. He span out there. After just a little chicane there, he had a little spin out. So I think from there on out, he fell back and was probably stuck in traffic. And then at some point, I saw him behind me again, and I was quite surprised. And then I don't know what happened after that, but he was again missing then. But yeah, he had really good pace. So yeah, I thought I was going to be stuck behind him. As you know, it's not easy to take over on this track. So unfortunately, yeah, he had a spin.
Well, that is unfortunate, but it is racing. And yeah, unfortunately, the Honda did struggle a little bit around here, like some other cars as well. Really technical circuit, and like you mentioned, difficult to overtake here at Alton Park. So next week, as you might already know, in preparation, we head to the final round 8 of the RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3 Championship for Season 21 at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. How are you feeling with the McLaren around that track?
Yeah, I haven't done that track in quite a bit, to be honest. I think I did it the last time in the Ford. I do like the track, so hopefully can take some advantage, so I'm feeling confident. Just have to put in the practice, obviously. Get used to the McLaren there, and yeah, I think there it's a lot to do with traffic again, similar to this track, where it's quite a short course, or track. So if you get your pit wrong or get stuck in traffic, yeah, it's not a good time. So I think it's all going to be up to decent pace. You don't even need the best pace, but just decent pace and good strategy, I suppose.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be an incredible one, and we could potentially be seeing you for a third time in a row in podium, and that could really, really buffer in your chances to taking home the championship standing here for the Pro-Am division. But it has been a phenomenal night. I'm not going to keep you for too much longer because I know you want to go off and celebrate for another P1 here. Just to give you the floor to mention anything that's on your mind, anything about your team, your potential sponsors, or anybody who helped you in preparation for tonight's race.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks to our team and the management of the team and the coaching inside the team. You might know some of them. Yeah, so thanks to the team members, and obviously thanks to our in-team sponsor, which is Infiltrate, and then in the background we've got SolidNet. So yeah, thanks to them, and thanks to yourself and RaceFace for making this all possible, and make it enjoyable, and putting all the time and effort. I don't think people understand the admin and all the preparation that you guys put in. So yeah, thanks to you guys mostly.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much once again for joining the commentary box. We'll see you next week at round 8 at Red Bull Ring. Have a phenomenal night further. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. Cheers.
Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, and that is going to wrap up our interviews for the Pro-Am division. Got a couple more people. Lynette van der Walt saying, well done, Rowan, proud of you. Incredible stuff from Ron van der Walt. Second week in a row scoring such points, so doing an incredible job at it as well. But coming in to finish off this for the final time here for round 7, it has been an incredible race tonight, but it is officially time to turn it all off and, unfortunately for the final time on my side, say goodbye. It's been a phenomenal time commentating here at RaceFace.Pro. It is unfortunately my last weekly broadcast here for the RaceFace.Pro organization of sim racing. And I will definitely still be in the scene, like I mentioned earlier on in the stream. I'm going to be in the scene. Obviously, I am management for Omnius Gaming, so we will definitely still be here. And we'll also still be here in terms of a commentating and broadcasting perspective, just on the slightly more broader scenes, and the scenes and races. There's a little bit more time gap in between. It's unfortunately just a little bit of a burden with constant weekly commentating, as Mr. Ron van der Walt mentioned it. There's a lot of admin work that goes into it. There's a lot of admin work that comes in from Hansi. It's a whole show that has to get put on here twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, nightly. So it has definitely been a fun one. It's been a courageous ride. I've learned a load, and I've learned a whole lot from the greater commentator on the other side there, Stephen Koenig. But it is officially time for me to put the mic down for now, and also take some time to focus on some other things that are slightly more important in life, especially in my life. But it has been a phenomenal one, and I am so grateful for everybody joining us in the virtual grandstand. Thank you so much for joining us here for round 7 of Alton Park here for the RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3 Championship. Ladies and gentlemen, it is officially a sign out from me, but the season is not over. Make sure you stick around to watch the pro stream next week for the finale of round 8. But ladies and gentlemen, other than that, I wish you the best, the good morning, the good afternoon, the good evening, and the final good night. Everybody have a phenomenal night, have a phenomenal public holiday tomorrow, and we'll see you guys on the track and in the virtual grandstand. Have a phenomenal day, everyone. Cheers.